Most people don't deliberately set out to destroy their own lives, yet the path to downfall is rarely a single reckless decision, it's a series of almost imperceptible steps. There's an unspoken, brutal truth about married women that most men fail to see. It's not about weakness. It's not about a lack of morals. It's about human nature and the undeniable pull of temptation. No one wakes up and decides, today, I'll betray everything I've built. Instead, it unfolds in the smallest, most innocent moments. A casual conversation. A lingering glance. The quickened heartbeat when a message arrives from someone who isn't her husband. Psychologists have studied this phenomenon for decades, calling it the slow erosion of boundaries. One small step at a time, one fleeting thought after another, until she eventually looks in the mirror and no longer recognizes the woman staring back at her. But what makes some married women particularly vulnerable? And perhaps more importantly, how do they justify it to themselves? That's exactly what we're about to uncover. Let's begin. Number 1. The unspoken void, why some married women seek external attention. A great marriage is, at its core, a partnership. Without true partnership, even the strongest bonds can wither over time. Helen Mirren's marriage, at its best, exemplifies a connection that endures trials, temptations, and the passage of time. However, not all marriages remain as strong as they once were. Many women, despite their vows, sometimes find themselves drawn to attention outside their marriage. This is often misunderstood, it's rarely just about physical attraction. More often, it's psychological. The biggest mistake people make is assuming these women are seeking an escape. In reality, they're searching for something they lost along the way. Humans are wired for connection, and women, in particular, have a deep-rooted need for emotional intimacy, not just physical presence. In the early stages of marriage, this intimacy is powerful. Late-night conversations, stolen glances, and the intoxicating feeling of being truly seen creates a deep bond. But over time, routine takes over. Life becomes predictable. Meaningful conversations turn into logistical discussions about groceries and household chores. Passion fades into duty. Worst of all, she starts to feel invisible. This is where danger begins. Dr. John Gottman, a renowned relationship psychologist, explains that the silent killer of relationships isn't conflict, it's indifference. When a woman no longer feels noticed by her husband, her subconscious mind begins to seek validation elsewhere, often without her even realizing it. People will do anything to avoid loneliness, even if it means losing themselves in the process. Sometimes, all it takes is a simple compliment from a stranger, a conversation with someone who truly listens, or a moment where she feels interesting again. Suddenly, that tiny interaction feels like oxygen after years of suffocation. Marriage brings stability, but the downside of stability is that it can smother excitement. Psychology calls this the Coolidge effect, the idea that novelty fuels desire. Both men and women are drawn to the thrill of the unknown. If every day in a marriage looks the same, if every interaction feels rehearsed, then even the smallest spark of something new can feel electrifying. It's not because she doesn't love her husband. It's not because she's a bad person. It's because she misses the thrill of feeling wanted. Love is not just about being together, it's about being chosen again and again. F. Scott Fitzgerald once wrote that we are most alive when we are in love. When a woman feels pursued, when she feels like she has power over a man's desire, it reminds her of a version of herself she thought was long gone. The younger, more confident version. The version who felt effortlessly attractive. She may never intend to cross any lines, but she might start walking closer to them because in those fleeting moments, she feels alive again. Another overlooked reason why some married women become susceptible to external validation is social identity loss. After marriage, many women feel they are no longer individuals, they become someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's caretaker. Their identity shifts from who I am to others. Before marriage, she was a mystery, an individual with her own dreams, interests, and passions. After marriage, she becomes defined by her roles, the one who keeps things together. While these roles are beautiful, they can also feel restrictive. If a woman no longer feels like her own person, she may seek interactions that make her feel separate from these roles. Sometimes, that interaction comes in the form of another man. True partnership in marriage means continuously seeing each other, choosing each other, and making space for individual growth. Because when a woman feels valued, heard, and pursued, she won't need to look elsewhere for the reminder that she is still her own person. Number 2, the justification game. The mind has a remarkable ability to justify what the heart has already decided. No one wakes up one morning and consciously chooses to betray their marriage. That's not how it works. Infidelity, whether emotional or physical, doesn't happen in an instant. It's a slow, slippery process, one that takes root in the mind long before it manifests in reality. When a married woman starts engaging in behavior that threatens her relationship, it often begins with seemingly innocent moments. A little attention. A harmless conversation. What's the harm? She tells herself. It's just talking. I'm not actually doing anything wrong. But the human brain is a master of self-deception. When an action contradicts one's core values, the mind creates justifications to ease the discomfort. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance, the inner conflict that arises when our actions don't align with our beliefs. And when that tension becomes unbearable, the mind bends reality to protect itself. As physicist Richard Feynman once said, the easiest person to fool is yourself. At first, the justifications seem minor, it's just flirting. I'd never actually do anything. But slowly, the excuses evolve. If my husband paid more attention to me, I wouldn't need this. This has nothing to do with my marriage, it's just something personal. The further she rationalizes, the deeper she goes. For many women, the first betrayal isn't physical, it's emotional. And that's what makes it so dangerous. A physical affair has clear boundaries, there is no gray area in kissing, touching, or sleeping with another man. But emotional infidelity? That's a different story. Late-night texts, deeply personal conversations, and confiding in someone else instead of her husband, these actions blur the lines. She convinces herself that it's just emotional, I'm not doing anything wrong. But emotional intimacy is powerful. When she starts sharing her deepest thoughts with another man, she has already begun to detach from her marriage. The moment she starts keeping secrets, she's already crossed the line. And as emotions deepen, physical boundaries begin to dissolve. That I deserve this justification. Perhaps the most dangerous justification of all is the belief that I deserve this. At this stage, her actions are no longer questionable in her mind, they feel justified. I've sacrificed so much for this marriage, I deserve to feel alive again. He hasn't paid attention to me for years. If he doesn't care, why should I? I've been faithful for so long, and it's gotten me nowhere. What's the point? This is the point of no return. The emotional connection with another man starts to feel more real than the marriage itself. She no longer sees her actions as betrayal, she sees them as justice. And once a person believes they are justified, nothing can hold them back. The truth is, married women don't fall into infidelity because they are weak or immoral. It happens because the human brain is wired to rationalize what feels good. It starts with tiny excuses, small justifications. But if left unchecked, those justifications become actions. And once the line is crossed, there's no turning back. Number 3, the breaking point. Habits form in silence, unnoticed, until they become chains too strong to break. Samuel Johnson's words capture a truth about human behavior: the moment of no return often goes unnoticed until it's far behind us. Every story has a turning point, a line crossed where things stop being theoretical and become reality. What begins as harmless conversation, innocent curiosity, or fleeting attraction can silently shift into something irreversible. Psychology explains this through threshold theory, which illustrates why people who swear they'll never do something eventually find themselves doing it. The real challenge isn't the act itself, it's doing it for the first time. The first message sent that shouldn't be, the first casual meetup that carries unspoken tension, the first lingering touch not immediately withdrawn. These moments define the shift. After the first time, the second time is easier. Repetition turns discomfort into familiarity. Aristotle once said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Before she even realizes, what once felt forbidden starts to feel normal. The biggest lie people tell themselves on this path is simple: I can stop whenever I want. But can they? Once emotions are triggered, attachment becomes addictive. Neuroscientists have found that romantic and sexual attraction activates the same brain pathways as drug addiction. The rush of dopamine from a new connection is intoxicating, a hit of something she didn't even know she was missing. So even if she promises herself, this is the last time, she finds a reason to return. At this point, it's no longer just about the man, it's about the feeling. Lies never start as second nature. The first hidden message, the first excuse, the first rush of anxiety when her husband asks, "Who are you texting?" It all feels unnatural at first. But the human mind is disturbingly adaptable. Guilt morphs into strategy. Deception becomes second nature. With time, the lies feel less like lies and more like a necessary part of life. She believes her own stories, compartmentalizing the truth so well that it barely feels like a betrayal anymore. And the longer this secret life exists, the harder it is to escape. She tells herself, "I'll end it soon." But soon turns into later, and later turns into never. The longer she stays, the deeper she sinks. And eventually, the shift happens, her husband becomes the other man. Her marriage is no longer her primary relationship. The passion, the intimacy, the emotional connection, those belong elsewhere. At this stage, even if no physical line has been crossed, her heart already belongs to someone else. And when that happens, there are only two ways this story ends: she gets caught, or she leaves, unable to keep living a double life. Why do some married women become the easiest prey? Because they're not seeking to betray their vows, they're seeking to feel something they've lost. And once they find it, walking away feels impossible. Not because they don't love their husbands, but because they've convinced themselves that what they've found is something they can never get back at home. Once that belief takes root, everything changes. Understanding this gives you power, the power to see beyond words, to recognize the silent signals, to read between the lines before things spiral beyond control. Knowledge is the key to seeing the game for what it is, so you're never blind to it again. This is Stoic Insights. Until next time, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.